Hi, guys, and welcome to Brewing e-commerce today. And we all hear about people. Some people tell us about some other folks saying, you should talk to this, hear out. They're doing some good work, and then you be lazy like me that you don't talk to them. But then you start hearing and seeing about the good work that they're also doing, and that's exactly how I stumbled upon Sulay, whom I had heard of so much. So many people had told me such good things about him, but then suddenly all his hard work started to show out. Started reading about him, started reading about what he's building, and I'm super excited to have Sulay on the podcast today. So thank you so much, Sulay, for joining us.
Thanks, Shreya. Thanks so much for having me.
So Sulay, Bummer, oh my god, right? I love the name. It's very catchy, and worked with some large media agencies to come up with the name, etc. I think name is such an important part of the whole journey
Yeah.
of the building, etc. So I'd love to hear start from you saying, firstly, can you quickly introduce yourself for everybody, and also how was the name formed for?
Absolutely. Thanks, Vedant. Yeah, so I mean, giving you guys quick context into who I am, what the brand really is. Obviously, the brand kind of over time becomes an extension of who you are. So I think that should be an excellent marriage to hear about. Having said that, Shvetang, I've spent the last roughly about 8, 9 years of my life in apparel, textiles. Again, come from a family business background that's also been in apparel and textile again for several few decades, so to speak. And I
Wow.
think so quite naturally. I mean, I think for me, my heart was always in apparel and will continue to remain so because I think that's the category that I'm the most excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, I think Bummer kind of started as a part of the journey where I spent a couple of years in America, sometime around 2017, and looked at how exciting the markets in the Western world really look like, and why there was a very strong need for fashion as a part of innerwear. I think innerwear was sort of the last of the billion-dollar in apparel that was yet to be disrupted. Everything else you can think of has been disrupted in apparel, say your socks and hoodies and fast fashion and everything
Yeah.
under the sun, right? I
Yeah.
think so. Essentially, in a nutshell, Bummer tries to bring fun to innerwear, loungewear.
Yeah.
Is what the idea is. Having said that, I think why Bummer? I think it's such a interesting take on having a negative connotation to a brand name, but also trying to kind of with Bummer, what we're really trying to say is that here the industry is a bummer, but you should wear one so that it doesn't really have to be for you. Right? Quite literally. Like
Yeah.
it's like a diss on the rest of the industry. Yeah, in the last very 20, 30 years, uh, all the industry, the whole industry has literally just made black, white, and blue undies for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
We want to kind of change that, right?
Yeah.
Or try to change that in some way.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's how it's not one of those stories where I was eating an apple and I just thought, hey, I'll name this apple. It was definitely not those stories. It's a very calculated story. We
Very nice.
put down a list of 30 names, 40 names that we felt relevant,
Yeah.
and Bama had a nice ring to it. It had everything. It had all the rights to for a winning name,
Yeah.
and the cherry on top was like Bummer has like the bum in it, right? Like, and it's so directly correlational to
Yeah.
underwear,
Yeah.
which is why it made sense, right? So I think winning formula found in this name.
Yeah, indeed, and I think the formula is working for you guys as well. The name is popular. The brand is getting established more and more as we speak and look at from the industry perspective as well. So kudos on that.
Right.
Let me go back a little bit on the journey part. In while you were in the US, I'm sure there's a pinnacle of a brand in innerwear which is Victoria's Secret, right?
Correct.
Again, of course, $1 billion company spending amount is very crazy, etc. That can be again broken down in different kind of smaller brands which might be in the US as well.
Right.
But when you wanted to bring that to India,
Mhm.
what was inside your head? how did you go about saying, you know what, yes, this might be a good thing to do it in a very, very different country?
Yeah. No, I mean, great question, Shwetank. I think while most of these guys, I mean, LinkedIn has too much gyan of the world today happening all around the place. I think a lot of guys, love speaking about um, why replicating businesses from the US don't really work in India or wherever else, or so to speak, right?
Hmm.
So it's not really a question of any of that. I would believe, right? Because today, if you look at businesses that exist around the world, around the country today, I'd say about most of the businesses are not really driving anything supremely innovative. And
Hmm.
by that, unless you're thinking of saying, hey, I'm going to go to Mars, all right, I'm going to
Yeah.
completely invent something absolutely new, that's really where innovation thrives. So if by method of elimination, if we were to look at startups and businesses in today's times, they're essentially all a game of execution, right? And that's the really that's literally the only thing that really it boils down to, right? I mean, so many VCs would typically come on calls and ask you, how are you different from a jockey, right?
Yeah.
But like, no,
Yeah.
man, that's not like a relevant question, quite honestly, right?
Yeah.
Look at my trajectory. Who am I? Am I the right person to really build this? And I think for me it was as straightforward as that. Looking at the category there, looking at the Indian ecosystem, and I think because fashion was so exciting for me, um, really bringing fashion to a product that consumers will never even see is an even bigger challenge, right? So
Yeah.
I think everything for us has really, really, really boiled down to execution. During COVID, I'm sure there are like 20 underwear brands that came up and were probably
Mm.
not around anymore. And the
Mm.
few of us have sort of survived the storm, I would say, of last year's funding winter and so
Mm.
on and so forth.
Mm.
So I like to think that um, while there can be inspiration on product, I think the translation for the Indian market for us has purely been on execution. And I think we very strongly believe and continue believing that you're doing innerwear for yourself. You're not doing it for someone else.
Yes.
And I think as Indian consumers, we are getting fairly conscious of angles like sustainability,
Yeah.
self-expression, personal confidence. It's still in a very nascent stage,
Yes.
but I think it's going to boom up, and I think that's sort of going to be our right to win in this category as a brand.
Yeah. No, I think you're saying some very, very good gold nugget pointers there, right? So in fact, when you look at large tech businesses of India at the moment as well,
Mhm.
most of them are a version of what is largely successful in the US already.
Or yeah,
Right? However, they have this huge flavor of India added to it, or the
true.
personalization, the customization kind of a thing, right?
Mhm.
And the other thing that a lot of big guys talk about and is trying to do something new and different, of course, has its own challenges.
Correct.
Do something that people already know of
Mhm.
and try to get a share, because then your whole customer education and all that part, that kind of becomes easy. And I think
Correct.
that's what you're saying there. I was watching another podcast with one VC, very, very famous guy, and he's like, if you go and sell milk today, it's going to be far more successful than going and doing some AI kind of stuff because, uh,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I think what you're saying is so on point, right? I think there's no real problem of innovation. I think innovation is happening across the board where people are building things so fresh and new
yeah,
that the world has probably not heard of them, but when they hear of it, they're excited. Oh wow, this is amazing, right? Like this is something that I could really use in my life. And
yeah,
I think it really boils down to a very very big problem of education, right? And what most people today don't really have, including myself, is the patience for education, because education is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to probably take 10, 15, 20 years of your life to educate the
yeah,
consumer, for the industry to really understand what you're trying to build. So
yeah,
education, and secondly, education is expensive, right? So you can't potentially try and do it on your own money, or completely bootstrap it and spend 20
yeah,
years realizing that, boss, I've not gotten too far by using my own money, right? And that's where VCs and all step in, because I think while most people love saying that, hey, I'm gonna raise this capital from a venture capital or an angel investor or so on and so forth to do marketing and so on and so forth. I think marketing is a super broad term. I think what all brands and all companies really mean is that I'm going to use this capital for education, and I think
Love it. Yeah.
uh, that really makes a lot more sense when you look at it from that lens.
Yeah, and I am, to be honest, to admit with you, Sulay, I am going through the same, right,
Yeah,
at my company, because what we're trying to do is not hold the ear from this hand, but like the ear this hand, right? We're trying to do something little different.
yeah,
One of the biggest thing for us is top of the funnel, trying to tell people why are we different, how are we different, and then and the patience part is so critical. 100%. So I live with that every day, so I can relate to it completely.
uh,
Um, that's a very good uh, point that you're trying to make. But if I focus on the D2C brand, the D2C product, right? There's like hundreds of skincare brands, right? Hundreds of apparel brands, etc.
hmm,
While the positioning is very important, I think you should also be able to tell me your thought process on how do you create a differentiation factor in a product.
right.
Is that critical? And if it
Mhm.
is critical, then how do you do that for a niche but widely available category as yours?
Yeah. So I think Shwetank again, this will when you again talk about differentiation, right? I think it will again still kind of boil back into the whole education bit that I was talking about earlier, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I think with differentiation comes the power to command a certain price, to command a certain value in the market. At the same time, those are your pros, but the cons obviously come at the cost of time, value, energy, money, everything, right? So I'm a very strong believer that differentiation is not supremely critical, because let's
Okay.
face it, right? Let's face it, and see, if you talk about when you talk about consumers, so to speak, very specifically. I mean, I think in tech, in the world of tech, I think tons of things are possible. But in the world of consumer brands, apparel, it's a certain way, man, right? I mean, let's face it. A t-shirt has to look a certain way. It's designed a certain way. It's supposed to fit a certain way.
Totally.
And underwear is, I mean, a brief can look like a brief. It has to look like a brief. There's nothing you can innovate on that unless someone comes in and really tries and disrupts the entire fit structure, which is probably unheard of or never possible.
Yeah.
And the same thing will probably translate into everything else that you're really doing, right? Whether it's skincare, whether it's F&B, whether it's electronics. Say, as a matter of fact, sure, electronics do have a bunch of tech at play, which makes them have a little bit of edge over these other categories. Electronics is not really a pure play consumption category, while
Correct.
others are a pure play consumption category. So I think there'll be a differentiation between a pure play consumption versus sort of long term consumption. And I think that's where you can really play, which is why I think electronics generally acts as a very exciting category overall for the country today. Um, but apart from that, right, like I very very strongly believe that for all of us combined today, whether you talk skincare, F&B, apparel, anything, the biggest right to win for all of us is the brand itself, right? It's honestly not like product differentiation or business model differentiation or anything else. And then the brand can further be boiled down into multiple things, right? Like,
Correct.
which is not really your right to win, but it's your right to survive. So I think if
Yeah.
we break
Yeah.
it down into two things, right to win, I think right to win is only brand, and right to survive is how you optimize for supply chain, how you manage your cash flow working,
Mm.
how you manage your meta ads, Google
Mm.
performances, how you build out that first set of team, right? I
Mm.
think I think those are your rights to survive, and all of these combined kind of plug back into your right to win, which is your brand at the pinnacle of it. So I think these are probably the few levers that I believe make the most sense apart from just differentiated product.
Yeah, and I would agree with you from that standpoint because we work with a lot of apparel brands as well, right? So one of the guy when I was talking to him and he said I'm like, what's your moat? Or there has to be something that you really stand for. And he's like,
Right.
sustainability. And I'm like, sorry, it doesn't cut it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
However, when you look at a very, very different example, when you look at True Classic,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah.
simple T-shirt, because you mentioned Sulay T-shirts, right? It just says it fits you nicely,
Yeah.
and you are even able to disrupt $1 billion industry just and brands which have been there for donkey's years, right? But still trying to make that difference. And I was just reading something yesterday is how True Classic is doing amazingly well with just that simple thing. It fits you very nicely.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and if you boil it down into the true classic sort of a strategy, there are millions of case studies now written
Yeah,
on those guys.
yeah.
I think it's through the roof. But if you think about it, right? Like I think when the top of funnel for those guys is built out so strongly, when
Mhm.
everybody knows what true classic is, or
Mhm.
they've built that awareness, now I would say that not all t-shirt wearing consumers are their consumers today. But the minute I order a random t-shirt from a random other brand, for
Mhm.
example, and it
Mhm.
doesn't fit me well, my first thing that I think is, hey, I should have gotten a true classic because they claim that it would have fit me well, right?
Wow. Yeah,
So I think the ideal consumer base for a true classic is for all those guys and girls and whoever who's had those bad fitting experiences with so many random shit they've brought on the internet. They all now think that, hey, this is my final shot. I know this is the one that's going to fit me very
no, that is amazing. I never thought it like that. That is so amazing because your like a tam is so large and big,
well. Correct.
and because the body size and the cloth and everything is so different, right? As soon as oh my, that's very much playing in the psyche. Yeah,
When you think like this, imagine that I would think, if I were to sell, say, on Mintra, or
yeah,
if I would just to want to sell on D2C,
yeah,
I would think that every consumer on Mintra is my
yeah.
consumer, say for example. But what if I looked at it the other way around and said that, hey, Mintra gets about 30% odd return rate or refunds on their t-shirts that they sell. Now that is my consumer, right? Like, because that is who I'm really solving for in the first place. As opposed to saying everybody who's buying on Mintra is my consumer, the folks who are actually returning their products because they didn't like them or didn't fit them well. I mean, it just opens a completely different playground of business, I believe.
That is super smart. So I couldn't think of it in that perspective. No doubt your product and your numbers are kind of speaking for that. So kudos to you for thinking in a different way, which is non-traditional in that sense.
Mhm.
uh, I want to ask you a couple of questions which are something that I've been asked a lot, and also which has drastically changed in the past 2 to 3 years. Is we work with a lot of early stage brands as well, right? Who've just started. Some of them reach out to us saying, I'm just creating my Shopify store. What should I do? Or some of them is like, I've just started spending, 15,000 on Meta, etc. What should I do? So, given the whole digital boom during COVID and the gone down now and the omni-channel retail offline, etc. Right? So if I had to ask you this question, that if you were to start a brand today from ground
Yeah,
up, right?
yeah,
What are those most important 5 things that you would want you to focus on?
got it. So I think the first thing would definitely be um, optimize for all channels, right? And I think that's a mistake that we as a brand also made, where COVID boom, D2C was through the roof. We thought, we'll only do D2C, right? It's
Yeah,
the best channel out there. Didn't really explore marketplaces for the first 2.5, 3 years of our business. I think big miss in terms of, again, education, revenue, top line, everything, right? So I think spread yourself as thin as you can in the very early stages. Maybe bad advice. You may look like, hey, I'm going to end up doing a bunch of stuff if you tell me to do that. But I think this is a thing you probably only do for the first 6 months. You realize what's working for you and you double down on it. Quite
correct.
simply put. And then you keep zooming out to figure out, hey, now this has stopped working. What else can I do? Right. So I think spread yourself too thin when you're starting out across channels. That would probably like be the first thing that I would say.
Makes
Um,
sense.
secondly, if you, again, assuming you're in a consumer space, brand space, optimize at max for inventory and supply chain. Simply because I think that is the largest cash eating part of the business after, of course, probably marketing.
Hmm.
So if you optimize for supply chain, de-risk yourself, get someone else to take the risk for your inventory, figure out those hacks, right? If you can convince a VC to put in money for you so that you can build the business, I'm
Hmm.
sure you can have someone take the risk for you to hold the inventory, right? I
Hmm.
think that conviction, I'm sure folks can have when they're starting out, right? Um, Third thing I would definitely like to point out is that do not miss the brand angle. I think again, lot of folks starting out. Even today, I'll tell you, man, I meet so many people who think that brand is a logo, is still just getting the packaging right,
Yeah,
just getting like
yeah,
your brochures right. I don't think that is what brand is, right?
totally.
Maybe if you got XYZ rupees to start a business, please allocate at least 30% of that or 20% of that
Nice.
in getting someone phenomenal to design your brand, right? I think because otherwise the problem is that you'll run it for 2 years, you'll not get that traction, you'll think, "Ki nahi, abhi I'll spend money on rebranding it," you'll again lose out that money, right? Quite
Yeah,
simply put. Quite simply put. So I think focus a bunch on brand.
yeah.
Um, Fourth thing I'd say, Shwetank, is that um, I'd love to. I mean, this is coming from personal experience as well. Build out that first set of folks, first set of teams
Hmm.
to kind of really play a very very pivotal role. I would say even if there are folks who are solo founders, please try and get like another founder. I'm a solo founder myself,
Yes.
right? And so are you. So I mean, I definitely say get folks as I mean get very very critical folks very very
Yeah,
early on,
yeah,
ESOP equity whatever that might be. And
yeah.
fifth is probably like the most important point. Do not raise venture capital, angel capital unless you absolutely have to.
Okay. Okay. I
Um,
love this point, and I want to go deep down into this specific one because um, the markets have changed drastically in the past, again, 3 to 4 years, right? If you were raising money maybe 5, 7 years back,
right,
uh, you were raising millions when the product was not even on a slide,
right,
right?
right,
And today, even if you have huge amount of revenue, they'll still find 99 reasons not to kind of give you the money, right? So you've been in the business, you've maneuvered around, you've raised money from very coveted venture capitalists, etc. So as a new brand, if somebody's starting out, how would you suggest they look at these things, and what are
yeah.
the major pitfalls that they can avoid when they go to a VC?
Mhm. Yeah. So I'll give you my thought process behind this, Shwetank, right? Like I believe while obviously we've taken the route of venture capital pretty early on in our journey. We raised our first round, I think, when we were just about a year old as a company.
Hmm.
Pretty early in our revenues, I think, just very initial traction for the business, and we kind of got that round in either owing to markets or conviction on the brand, or product, whatever the reason could be.
Mhm.
I very strongly believe that you should try and build the business as much as you can on your own merit.
Mhm.
It may take longer. It may take way longer than you expected it to take you. But what I very strongly believe is that today with venture capital, what does the journey really look like, right? I mean, I think that's the question to ask yourself. How many? It's very exciting, right? Like I think venture capital is generally so exciting. You get those bragging rights. Kia boss, I raised that capital, right? Like now I'm a VC funded company, and I've been in that journey, quite
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I was proud of myself, right? Like, and
Sure.
I was fully in that zone of head. Ki was so we've just 1 year. I'm 25 years old. I've raised this venture capital for the company. This is so and so is the valuation, etc., etc. But I don't think it serves a longer purpose, right? Um,
Hmm.
Simply because if today any category, any product, any business you are trying to disrupt, imagine the kind of capital it's going to take you to even be 1 to 3% of what the larger incumbent in your category is. Right? I'll give you a quick example of Bummer as a
Sure.
category in itself. Now there's competition in and around the market today who've raised roughly $50 million in combined total capital, right? Which is roughly about 400, 500 odd crores in Indian
Mm.
rupees. Um, now, boss, despite doing that, they're probably at about even 1% of where jockey really is,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. In terms of size and scale, right?
Sure.
So now, if the aim is to even be a threat to the incumbent in the category, I'm not even saying you compete with them, you become their scale, but you even become a small piecemeal for them in the grander scheme of things. Imagine the kind of more money it's really going to take for you to really get there. And in that process, at least 30 other brands tried, but only maybe two or three actually
Will
even
survive.
got to that 1%,
Yeah.
of jockey share realistically. So
Yeah.
now, if you think about it, while venture capital is so celebrated as a process and as a milestone in your journey, what are your chances of success even after? And by success, I mean success is different for everybody.
Yeah. For everyone.
But
Yeah.
but when a VC gives you money, they don't expect a $1-2 million outcome. They expect $100 million outcome out of it.
Yeah. 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 Huh.
So बात सीधी हो गई कि
Yeah.
now imagine to get $100 million outcome, how
How
much more
much?
money you need, how many years do you need to put in, and
Yeah.
despite those $100 million, the chances of your success are still 50-50. Right? So आराम
Yeah.
से धंधा बनाओ, right? I think the best businesses in India today still are the ones who never raised venture capital, and I don't think people talk about this enough. People don't talk about this enough. It took them 30 years, it took them 50 years, but they built it, right? Maybe the times were different, maybe their pedigree was different. Forget all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when you start looking at those things, then everything is different for everyone, right? But the fundamentals of that, I don't think changes. Yes, the
Correct.
market has changed drastically today. It's much more harder to. Again, I think I can say that maybe it's not correct, but I think what you say it makes sense because uh, trying to be able to do it running in that rat race. I don't know how much it really helps, but it's very glamorous for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've had our share of it as well, so I can tell you. But
Yeah.
but yeah,
No, I'll give you just a quick thought on
please.
top of this also, right, Shwetank?
Yeah,
I think while you're even if you end up raising capital and doing the whole shebang, right? I think realize the cost, realize the opportunity cost. Again, I think most of us as founders, we get so head down into the idea, the vision that we're passionate about.
yeah,
We forget looking at the opportunity cost, saying that, hey, I've learned so much, I've done so much, but hey, now this is probably not going anywhere. Do you think I could have used this time to do something else which genuinely has the potential to be something else, right?
yeah,
I think so. Opportunity cost is such a big cost because I keep running this for 5 years. I don't even remotely become a threat to a jockey or an
yeah,
XYXX or a comment or any of my competition. I don't even remotely become that. I'm 35 by then, and I'm realized, ki, boss, I don't think I can do I can do one more company now, right? Like, I
yeah,
mean, so opportunity cost, I think, plays such a pivotal role in these decisions. Also, I feel.
yeah. But we're not talking about age here right now because I'm going to be far more depressed, and I'm not 35.
it's
So
it's it's just a number. I mean, there are the best of the folks in the country who have the heart to start up at 50, also 60, also
and
70, also.
and
So I think
yeah,
that's absolutely
yeah.
a subjective. I mean,
No,
and
kudos to them.
I think big ups to you. I think starting up at such a stage in your life, I think takes insane amount of clarity to really be able to be in a position to do that.
Yeah, yeah, and I have to admit we were million miles away from clarity. It is all the learnings on the way, all the pitfalls, all the things that even if I look back over a year, just a year, saying what the heck were we doing? It's so different. But I think that's the fun of the game. That's the part that every single day you just look at the back, saying can I do this better? Can I do something
Yeah.
more?
Mhm.
And the clarity comes over time, and it just takes time.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
And on the whole VC point, I was watching a podcast of Sam Altman talking to Vinod Khosla again, who was one of the first investors in
correct.
OpenAI.
Yeah, yeah.
and a very controversial statement, but he said that
I read that.
70% of 70% of the VCs uh, not just add value, actually they go and bring negative value to the company because they're like, show me this report, show me this, show me that, and yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So again, which is why I mean I think what they say is very true. That I think if you're genuinely raising and if you genuinely believe that capital is the right way to go, external capital is the right way to go for your business,
yeah,
um, you should not really focus on too much of brand value that the investor really comes with, uh,
hmm,
because color of money is green everywhere,
yeah,
right? And I think whoever you take it from the folks who let you do you as
yeah,
much as you can, right?
true,
Without interference. At least this is true for early stages. I'm sure at later stages where you've raised a couple of tens of millions of dollars, obviously you're
become,
accountable for their money, which
yeah.
is a different ball game altogether. But at least for the early stage, color of money is green everywhere. So just take it, start it, and keep building. I think that's the best way to proceed.
Very, very nice. Well, that is indeed makes a lot of sense. So let's talk a little bit about building now, right? You've started something, uh, got traction, got validation in the market. You're an established brand in the country. I don't know anybody in D2C India when I speak to saying they would not know Bummer. And I can with all my certainty say it takes a lot to reach at this stage, right? And with the market dynamics evolving, uh, how do you think the next 2 to 3 years stand for you guys, and what are those major angles or bullet points you are working towards now on?
Sure. This is specific to Bummer, right? I mean, you mean
Yeah,
in terms of, yeah. So I think, Shwetank, I would say that definitely working predominantly on expansion and distribution is very very critical in terms of where we're at in our journey, right?
yeah,
I think very very strongly that this is probably going to be the year, or maybe the next year is going to be the year where D2C starts seeing extremely diminishing returns, while
yeah,
your website will still be super, 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 super relevant in building out that initial set of traction. But
yeah,
maybe in the longer run, while I think earlier, as you saw, brands could easily take D2C to 7-10 crores sort of a month,
yeah,
sort of a
yeah,
run rate. Today,
yeah.
it's very tough to even take the business to about 3-4 crores a month, sort of in D2C, right?
Hmm.
So I think those diminishing returns will start kicking in. So we want to be secure in terms of um, positioning ourselves across the board, which would include all channels of offline retail, etc., etc. I think beyond that, really want to Shwetank, deep dive into product innovation, right? And product by innovation, I don't necessarily mean just building out a new product. But I think we are very linearly focused on underwear as a category, right? Everybody else
Oh,
will come to us and say, "He do general apparel, do everything, right? Because underwear mein kitna hi bana loge, right? But I mean, we very strongly believe that underwear is, in itself is a fairly large, and we're here to take the largest share as far as at least the young consumer of India today is concerned.
mm-hmm.
And I think that is going to be propelled by a lot of supply chain optimization, R&D optimization in terms of how we can keep mastering sort of that product look and
Mm-hmm.
feel for the consumer, right? So I think that's something again that we're doing, and we very recently sort of raised around fairly strategic for us. So again, kind of doubling down on brand is something which is on our radar for the next 12 to 24 months. While everything we've done in terms of creativity, Shark Tank, ho gaya, sab thoda PR mil gaya, everything's happened for
Mm-hmm.
us
Mm-hmm.
in a way. But I don't think it's a brand until you're bloody everywhere under the sun, right?
Yeah,
Right? You keep echoing in the minds of the consumer. You are bloody everywhere. Like it's like cred, right? Like it's like cred. And you can do this by two ways. You can either get extremely creative with it,
yeah,
which I believe we somewhat are, or you
yeah.
can just simply blow money at it and
Oh,
it'll
yeah,
happen.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
But anyone else I would have asked this question, so I would have said, one, two, three here. But I love that you say, all you have to do is brand. And once you
Yeah.
do the brand, all these tentacles under the brand, which is distribution, right? Which is again the branding, the recall value, the loyalty, everything. So that summarization of it, I think I really like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's he. If you already boiled down, he right to win. Hamara in this category is brand.
Hmm.
Then why are we not working towards it? Why are we still obsessing over ROAS and kitna spend hua, kaisa creative bana? I mean, sure, all a culmination
Yeah,
of brand
yeah,
in a way,
yeah,
all a culmination of brand in a way, but micro optimization of smaller levers probably not the most critical thing to worry about right now.
yeah,
Optimization for the overarching idea of who the brand really is what is the most critical element, and these small things form a part of it.
yeah, yeah. No, that's excellent. Um, it takes a lot to have this clarity, so right? And again, it keeps on changing. The priorities change, etc. Right? But to be here and I think it's the amount of experience. वो जितने जूते रगड़े वो it's and I don't think there are any shortcuts to it, right? Some people get that in 6 months, some people get that in 6 years.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to see that at a very young age and a very young brand, the way you guys have been is able to establish. I think that again, very very good things about you guys. Um, I have to ask you last two questions. First one is I met. Some guys from like Durex, etc., in past few months. And I'm just talking about is how the whole category has evolved for them, and the quick commerce has become like a major, like about 70% of their business is kind of coming from there.
Correct.
Uh, do you have some stats also in terms of how this quick commerce is kind of thing? And because I would never imagine ordering an intimate wear or an underwear or a brief on quick commerce, but
Yeah.
is that different than what you see?
Um, Pretty early stages for us on that, Shwetank. I mean, I think we went live with Zepto very recently. It's just been about sort of 3 odd weeks since we've kind of gone live. The initial traction is phenomenal. I mean, we are very excited about it. But no, I don't think it stands true for a category like apparel. It still stands true in somewhat way for innerwear for us as a category because
Hmm.
still essential wear.
Hmm.
And right, like I think with for others it's pretty straightforward, right? I don't want to walk out into a store and I want to buy my jockeys or my daily wear, regular wear stuff, etc., etc.
Hmm.
But I think for Bummer, why it makes a lot of sense is because there are so many occasions and so many things happening in life when you essentially need a Bummer, right? I
Okay.
mean, right? Like I probably have a date tonight, and
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
I don't have a cool underwear to wear.
yeah,
Or you've recently started dating. You're going on your anniversary or honeymoon trip, or you're
yeah,
traveling to Goa with friends, or whatever those sort of pivotal
event.
moments in
Yeah,
life,
yeah,
events in life could be. I think that's why it makes a lot of sense for Bummer to be very honest, and which is why exactly why I very strongly believe that generally with apparel overall it may start making a sense, but will start making sense for a lot of fast fashion. So today,
yeah.
if someone like a snitch were on quick commerce,
Hmm.
or if they already are, I do not know. It would make a lot of sense, right? Because it's an impulse buy. I'm buying it for a certain occasion. I'm buying it
Yeah,
for a certain something. I think those are things where I think quick commerce will really win for brands like us. Where it will probably not win is where consumers will always constantly remain focused on um, uh, a decent amount of thought process, how you deliberate about a lot of things in life generally,
hmm.
right? कि
Hmm.
मेरे को ये लेना है, you add it to cart, but you don't buy it. And I
Totally.
think that's the most common consumer dilemma. They'll shut it down, but they'll keep coming back to it every
Yeah,
single.
yeah,
I think those are purchase dilemmas where I think still the likes of your marketplaces like Amazon, Flipkart, Mitra will all continue winning regardless.
yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Sulay, but this is a significant change in consumer behavior. And
Yeah.
especially in India, what has happened in the past, because it's 7, 8, 10 years now, the whole technology has made us so lazy and laid back.
Yeah.
And for a good sense, right? I don't mean to be controversial or anything here, but like when I go to India to our office, and the guy is like, I have seen this, that we had an office in the third floor,
Right.
and the guy that was we were sitting in midnight in the office and trying to work, and the guy is like, I feel like drinking coffee. I'm like, okay, the coffee machine would be on the fourth floor. He's
Right.
like, why don't I just order it and somebody will come and deliver it to me here? I'm sitting right in my chair and I'm like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
living in the UK, this is something that I can't believe, and especially the amount of price that I would need to. And recently, I was talking to somebody, and then the guy was like, you should see how this quick commerce is going on, and uh, I wanted to get ready for Holi, and then we didn't have T-shirts, and we ordered it right then and there. I'm like, really? This is what we always thought planned. Like, how can you decide 5 minutes before? And then I just realized that this has been going on because mobile phone penetration, those other services, right, your Zomatos and others have gone so deep that once you're used to it, then you've come to now this whole quick commerce kind of a thing.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
And
Correct.
I think you very nicely sliced and diced it, saying, what, there will be one segment of people where,
Mhm.
who have an event in their life, would always want to go and try to figure it out, and that's itself is a very big market.
Correct. It's a huge market, right? It's a huge market, and I would also look at the flip side of it. So while the whole internet penetration and the convenience has become so amazing for all of us as consumers, what I'm really excited about for it to happen in, say, probably the next 3 or 5 years, how does this impact consumer fitness, mental health,
Hmm.
laziness, uh, will probably most likely increase further penetration for OTT platforms because people want to stay and just
Yeah.
get stuff in 10 minutes. So right, like I think this is gonna have a beautiful circular impact across so many things. Maybe gyms will start showing us slow down. Maybe obesity may increase. So I
Yeah.
think I think these are impact that I believe uh, would be amazing to see how it plays out in the next 5 years, right? I think which people are probably not visualizing at this point in time, I guess.
Why do I get a sense that you're already starting of thinking something new as well? Like, along with this, the Sulay is also getting some new ideas.
एक धंधा अच्छे से संभलता
एक
नहीं है, दूसरा
का-
कहाँ से करवा लेंगे?
No, I know this is what happens to me always. Somebody comes up and says a cool idea. It's like, why don't you do this? I'm like, you know what? Sorry, अरे एक भी नहीं संभल रहा है वो तो कर ले पहले.
I would do anything else, but I believe that first love is first love. तो
No,
ये
totally.
पहले ये देख लेंगे. If
Yeah,
if something happens, amazing. If something doesn't happen, the next adventure is always ready.
perfect. No, that makes sense. My last question, Sulay. I'm loving this conversation, and it just didn't realize the time, but it's going so smoothly. Uh, and this is the toughest question. Okay.
Okay.
So brace for it. You have to tell us something uh, that you've never told anybody else before.
Wow.
Something about yourself, a funny incident, or something happened, so you embarrassed yourself crazy, or something like that, right? Something for all the people watching this should take away from this podcast.
Wow. Interesting. Um, No, I mean, I don't think I have anything funny, to be very honest with that. I mean, I'm sure there are like insane amounts of funny incidents in all of our lives. But I'd rather end this more on a business note or like a startup note, so to speak.
Perfect, perfect.
And it may not directly fall into the aspect of something that I've not told anyone, but it's something that I've definitely not openly discussed.
Uh-huh.
But I think as a startup founder, the biggest fear that you run through, and which I grapple with almost every single day, is that are we at a point where failure is not an option, or there are no chances of us failing, right? So I'll give you an example of this quite honestly, right?
Hmm.
And why this bothers me, or why it is something that I don't discuss with anybody, but it's something that eats up probably every single founder out there, but I don't think there's enough conversation around it.
Yeah.
Is Yeah, I mean, and quite literally, I'll tell you, right? Like today, someone like a Byju's is failing, say for
Yeah.
example, right?
Mm.
But it has already crossed the threshold where they are not really failing. There is no chance that the company essentially can shut down because there's so much money riding on it. Today, I mean, I'm just giving you a perspective.
Yeah,
Today,
yeah, sure.
we are in a stage of a brand where an investor would think, rather than pumping more money into this to keep it alive,
Mm.
I'd rather let it shut down,
Mm.
simply because it's a better cost value opportunity for
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
I don't think as a brand we've crossed that threshold
Mm.
where shutting down is never going to be an option. And it's you either someone comes and acquires you in any capacity,
Mm.
or the business is a roaring success, right? Those are the only two options that are available to you.
Totally.
I think
Yeah.
in cases like ours, there are three options that are, and I think that is what eats me up every single day. That is what eats me up every single day. And I think the first leap of faith is not to think, how do we make this super successful?
Mm.
The first thought process right now, obviously for me as a founder, as a brand owner, is how do we cross that threshold where we get to a point where there is no failure for us at all. I think automatically a large part of mental stress, so many things going on in your head, completely go away कि अब तो कुछ नहीं होगा. I mean, I think that is something that I believe I've not spoken about at all, but I feel it's very relevant, that I personally face, to be honest.
And I just have one single word for it. So it's very beautiful. And why I say beautiful, because it's very thought provoking for sure. It's very insightful, but also you put it in a very nice way that me sitting exactly in very similar shoes to you can completely relate to it. And I had not thought of it in this way,
Yeah.
right?
Um,
Because like you said earlier, see, success is so different for everybody, right?
yeah.
If you
Mhm.
ask a VC, their matrix of success is going to be extremely different to a founder, always. That's always the case. But while we all work towards success, is what our customers think about us, what do they feel, right, etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
This journey, this reaching a level which is where we can continue to serve our customers, but also
Correct.
continue to keep the light switched on. You know,
Correct. Yeah.
that I think is very good. And if we start looking at it from this lens, then a lot of matrix changes in our daily thing. So wow, yeah, a lot to take. So like, I always knew you were the business guy, you were the numbers guy, you were, you very laser focused in all our conversations. You've always been like, I want this, etc., and you've been very crystal clear. But I'm so glad that we spoke, because it brings you out in a very different light as well. And I hope everybody watching, can only gain from this. So thank you so much.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Vedant. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm so glad we could do this.
Yes, I'm so glad. Thank you so much. And the only problem, when you do good work, is you're expected to do it again. So, looking forward to having you again at Brewing E-commerce in the coming days. But wish you guys all the best. Keep rocking. Keep doing the great work you are. And we are all here to root and support you in all way possible.
Thank you so much. Means a lot. Means a lot, Shreya, Ashwita. Thank you.